Hello, biologist. We are here to do lab 4.15, the bonus round where you get extra credit. In case you didn't get 14, you can look at the graph below. What times of year are the most nitrogen and phosphorus available in water running off streets? Well, they actually grabbed this data from street sweepers. They swept the streets of Prior Lake, Minnesota in an experiment working with the Hobby Lab of the University of Minnesota. There's more information right down here. And they found that the dry solids, basically dried leaves and grass and stuff that's not dirt, in the street sweepings, they floated that to the top of some water. And they also tested the water, and they found that phosphorus and nitrogen, the yellow and green here, those nutrients go up in the fall when all the leaves fall off. And they're using this data to actually do more intensive street sweeping and get neighbors out there raking the leaves out of the gutters so that lakes don't get so much phosphorus and nitrogen loaded into them. Those leaves should sit and rot somewhere where that phosphorus and nitrogen are going to get used up by plants. If they just sit there on the asphalt in the street, that nitrogen and phosphorus just sits there and runs into the lake and makes it green and smelly. So, but if you put your leaves on your strawberry bed over the winter instead of in the street, they can provide phosphorus and nitrogen to your strawberries. And so bonus question round 1. What kind of fertilizer do I need for my delicious strawberries? This is a strawberry plant developing, and phosphorus is a nutrient that you need for good blossoms and good fruit production if you're growing plants. I tested my soil here before I put fertilizer on. I decided that I needed something pretty high in phosphorus. You don't see the phosphorus test here, but I did go and buy steamed bone meal, which is basically ground up bones left over from processing meat, which you can see the NPK number here. It's got a little bit of nitrogen. It's got a lot of phosphorus and 0 potassium. After I tested my soil, I found that my potassium here, the test column here, matches the surplus nitrogen. Or surplus phosphorus, excuse me. So after I fertilized, I had plenty of phosphorus in my strawberry beds, and I grew some fabulous strawberries last spring, and I'm hoping the same thing happens this year. Compost tea is another great free fertilizer you can get for your garden. I have a composter that sits on top of a little platform. All the water that drains down through the compost washes the goop from the compost, which is full of some wonderful nutrients. It's like pop for your plants. You like having a smoothie for the vitamins, or maybe like a Gatorade. This is wonderful, delicious smoothie Gatorade stuff for my plants. You can see that it's got a lot of nitrogen, it's got a lot of phosphorus, and it's got a fair amount of potassium in it, not so much though, which is great because you don't want to put too much potassium on your plants. So my delicious compost tea, which is in this kind of green, nasty looking milk jug over here, is great for your garden. It makes your plants nice and green and grows lovely fruits and flowers. Oop. Bonus question 3. Let's test some organic fertilizer. We're going to skip this step because it's kind of a mess. But it does work pretty well. You can see that the bone meal stuff that I put on my strawberries worked out fabulously. So we're going to skip question 3. Sorry, guys. Question 4. Grass and clover were introduced into a yard that was low in available nitrogen compounds in the soil. In other words, we tested the soil. We found out that it was pretty darn low in nitrogen. If you don't want to dump a bunch of expensive fertilizer on your lawn, but you do want to kind of bring it around and keep it nice and green, what species of plant would you reasonably expect to grow more robustly? Are you going to expect clover with the lovely little nodules here, or the grass here? We've got two kinds of plants. We've got clover, which can fix its own nitrogen. Even in nitrogen poor soils, it can provide its own. Or grass here, which is kind of needs to be babied and coddled and given a lot of extra nutrients and vitamins. If you said clover because it's got nodules that are full of rhizobium bacteria that can pull nitrogen out of the air and convert it into a form that's good for plants, you're absolutely correct. Remember that plants can't use atmospheric nitrogen or these dinitrogen molecules here. The nitrogen has to be fixed or turned into nitrates, NO3 compounds, where there's a nitrogen and 3 oxygens attached. The nitrifying bacteria in the nodules of things like clover, peas, alfalfa, legumes can do this. There's also free living nitrogen bacteria, nitrogen fixing bacteria. But you're more likely to get a large quantity of it that work well for your plants if you plant plants that have nodules. So the nitrogen fixing bacteria works to convert nitrogen from the air into a form, this nitrate form that plants can use. They can bind it with oxygen. And the denitrifying bacteria do the opposite thing. They convert the form that plants can use back into atmospheric nitrogen. So if you plant clover, these nodules here are going to give bacteria a place to live. Those nitrifying bacteria that can pull the nitrogen out of the air and make nitrate for the plant and fertilize the plant from the roots. So planting any of these kinds of plants, clover, alfalfa, peas, peanuts, any of the bean plants, these are called legumes. They're going to have nodules and they're going to feed your soil. They're going to put nitrogen back into the soil because they're going to make a home for those nitrifying bacteria and help those nitrifying bacteria do their best work. Thanks for coming to the bonus round. If you want to look up your own brand of organic fertilizer, you want to look up something on the internet, or you want to research something like blood meal or bone meal or fish emulsion, things that organic gardeners like to use, or even if you want to research cow manure or chicken manure, I will happily give you some credit for that. Thanks so much for coming again. Bye-bye.